And what is up, everyone? I am Joe DeHoyos. I am host of Beyond the Woodline. Real quick before we get started with today's show, some of the things I like to talk about, what I do, and what I've got going on. Some of you may or may not know I am part of the JRG, which is the Jeopardy Research Group, where we research and investigate all things related to Bigfoot. Right? If you're interested in joining a team, we have teams in Florida, Oklahoma, Ohio, um, New York State, Maryland, California, uh, Mississippi, and I'm sure I'm missing a couple of other states. But of course, where I'm at here in Texas, we have a couple of people here. If you're interested in joining that team and want to get out and investigate, shoot me a message. It's jrg.hillcountry at gmail.com, and we'll get you started. We'd like to vet everyone. We just don't want to put people out there with people we don't know, and so we just ask that you're not crazy. Okay, that's all we ask. That's all. Even though we're out looking for this creature that supposedly doesn't exist. But if you want to help out with the research, you can. You can. You don't have to get out into the field. We certainly understand that not everyone wants to get out into the field. I don't like to go out there in the summertime because all the snakes and ticks. I don't like that stuff. But you can do your research from behind your computer or on your cell phone. Give us ideas, techniques, find witnesses for us, find areas for us. Do some research in history for us too. You don't have to get out into the field. So if you're interested, just hit me up and we'll get you guys started. And if we don't have a team in your state, we certainly know people all over the country that we network with all the time. So and all over the world really. So if you're interested, man, hit me up because we do have teams in Malaysia and Australia. So with all that being said, I know you guys don't tune in to hear me run my mouth all day. I have a very special guest, Miss Paige. How are you doing, Paige?
Hi, yeah, doing great, Joe. All the
Yeah,
way over from here in Scotland.
yeah. It's quite the time difference. So I really appreciate you,
Oh, it's
working
not
this
a
out
problem.
with me. And I think we found a great uh, time slot for us. Baby
Yeah,
Cola
we're
says
definitely
hi, and
hello. Yeah, no,
also,
definitely a good midpoint considering we've got the ocean between us and everything.
and Derek says hello from the great state of Texas.
Oh, hi, Derek.
Yeah, so cool. So, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you started into the whole Loch Ness monster thing.
Yes. So obviously my name is Paige and I run the official Loch Ness Monster fan club. So we are a group of people dedicated to furthering the research about the Loch Ness Monster, protecting the Loch Ness Monster, and really just getting the Loch Ness Monster out there. I'll say as well that although I run the Loch Ness Monster fan club right now, I wasn't the person to start it, and it's actually been around since 1996. I've taken over the reins this year. It was my father who started it with a sighting of Loch Ness Monster back in 1996, and it grew from there. It's also branched out to being the register of sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. We are the official people who keep tally of all sightings of Loch Ness Monster, and we also determine whether or not people have seen the Loch Ness Monster, if it's something unexplained in Loch Ness, or if it's maybe something, a seal in the water. That happens quite a lot. So, yeah, we are the official Loch Ness Monster fan club.
That's cool. Yeah, and I found you on TikTok, and I was like,
Yeah.
when I found it, I was like, oh, I gotta have her on my show, because that was really, believe it or not, even for people here in the United States, Loch Ness was the gateway to the cryptid world. You know what I'm saying? As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, I was talking to a friend of mine this weekend, not even this weekend, maybe 2 days ago. And he told me, he goes, yeah, Loch Ness is what got me involved in cryptids. So I thought that was pretty cool. Is there anything you can tell us about your dad's sighting?
Yes. So what happened was he was driving down the side of Loch Ness. So obviously Loch Ness is in the Highlands of Scotland, and the majority of it doesn't have shoreline, and it's actually got a big road. So I've got a map of Loch Ness behind me, which is quite handy.
Yeah.
It's actually so big it doesn't fit on the whole map, but that's the majority of Loch Ness there, and it's got a road going down the side of it there. He was driving along one day and he saw something really strange in the water, and he pulled over and he was watching it and he was thinking like, I don't know what that is because it's just so bizarre. And he wanted to then go and tell somebody and say, oh, by the way, I think I might have seen the Loch Ness Monster, just to see if anyone was, doing some research, keeping a tab on things. And it turned out nobody was. And that's really what sparked him off. He realized that so there's a huge history obviously of the Loch Ness Monster, but the most recent people prior to the Loch Ness Monster fan club was the Loch Ness Investigation Bureau, and they disbanded in the 70s. So once they stopped keeping the tabs on things, nobody was. So that's when he decided, well, why don't I start collecting these sightings and hearing what people are saying and just start growing this community about Loch Ness Monster. And of course, there's a few other people out there who are doing it as well, doing more kind of their own things. There's a guy who lives at Loch Ness called Steve Feltham, who every single day is at the beach at Loch Ness watching for the Loch Ness Monster. And then there's another guy called Alan who runs Loch Ness Exploration, who every so often will go and do some explorations of Loch Ness to see what's there. He's more about the nature and the landscape of Loch Ness and less probably about the mystery of the Loch Ness Monster, whereas we are 100% Nessie and we will protect you and we want to know more about you.
That's good. Yeah, you mentioned Steve, and I definitely want to get to him because he has an interesting story.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
A very interesting guy. Love
right.
Steve. He's so
Yeah,
dedicated. Bless
he
him.
has to
Been
be
there
right.
32 years
Yeah.
searching for Nessie, and he's only seen Nessie once. I think it was within 18 months of him moving up to Scotland to Loch Ness to dedicate
Oh,
his time to finding the Loch Ness Monster. He had a sighting. But ever since then, he's not seen Nessie yet. So, I mean, he's still seen Nessie, but he's just furthering searching every day, waiting. But what's really interesting, so you'll see on my map here, that's 6 of the sightings of Loch Ness Monster this year. I suppose if I put my screen up a little bit higher, you'll see up in the corner there, there's a really weird picture. You won't be able to see it very well. That's Steve Feltham. And if this map went the whole way of Loch Ness, that's where Steve Feltham stays, is at the very top at Doors Beach on Loch Ness. And the nearest sighting to him is Urquhart Castle, which is there, and there's been no sightings. This is this year's sightings. There's been no sightings near Steve whatsoever. Very unfortunate.
right,
And he's now coined it that he thinks he scares away the Loch Ness Monster.
right.
So I wanted to check that on one of my TikTok videos. And it's true. So far this year, he's scared Nessie right down to the south of the loch. So I've said to Steve, you should probably go down here for a day, but then we would know what would happen is Nessie would just shoot right back up to the
Right.
top and you'd be back to square one again. So if you want to go see the Loch Ness Monster, just try and make sure you're nowhere near Steve for the day because he apparently
Yeah.
scares Nessie away.
Well, you know what? That's very interesting. Because so like with a lot of animals, a lot of these sightings, and it doesn't matter, if it's a bear or cougar or Bigfoot or whatever. A lot of the sightings are accidental. I
Yeah,
think if you're going out looking for a creature, chances are you're not going to find it
yeah.
because they're going to know you're looking for them.
Oh,
So I wonder,
100%.
I wonder if Nessie knows that this guy's looking for me, so I'm not going to be
Yeah.
around. And I wonder if they recognize him at this point.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, out of the 7 sightings we've had so far this year, obviously there was the big search for the Loch Ness Monster this year. I don't know if you heard about it. It was arranged by a kind of local tourist attraction.
Mhm.
They made this big weekend of searching for the Loch Ness Monster. And unfortunately for them, it was a torrential downpour. So not many people turned up because the rain scared them away. But out of the sightings, we did have one confirmed sighting that weekend. One man, he didn't manage to get a photo, but he did see the Loch Ness Monster. He clearly drew a picture of what he saw. And then 2 days later, there was another similar sighting from somebody else saying, I saw the exact same thing. And again, all around here. But that was, I think, out of a good 50 to 100 people who had gone to various locations around Loch Ness, dedicated searching for the Loch Ness Monster. Only one person managed to see Nessie, but then still got didn't get photographed, didn't get video. It was just what they saw. So I mean, we can't deny what someone saw, but yeah, as you say, when a lot of people turn out to look, it's very difficult to then
Right.
say if
Yeah.
you're actually going to see something.
Yeah, speaking of photographs, that one famous, the old photograph. What year was that taken in?
So the surgeon's photograph, what you're thinking of, is probably likened to this what
Right.
I've got behind me here. This one, I think, is just something that someone's computer generated. It was from an article. Actually, that's the article of this guy who saw something that weekend. I've got
Okay.
it there. The surgeon's photograph was in 1934. 1984. So it was a doctor who was up on holiday, and that's why it's been coined the surgeon's photograph.
Oh,
He was up on holiday and he spotted the Loch Ness Monster. Unfortunately, years later, it came out that I think one of the relatives of this person said, no, we actually made this grand hoax to get revenge on the Daily Mail, which is a newspaper here in the UK, because they didn't want to run a story about Loch Ness Monster. But then again, there wasn't much confirming that, so it's very up in the air whether or not that is a hoax or if it's not a hoax. But then aside from all that, with that photograph, the biggest question that we as the fan club have about it is there's no context in that photograph to confirm that it's even Loch Ness. And that's one of the most important things that we look out for when we get a potential sighting of Loch Ness Monster is how can we geographically confirm that this person has even been at Loch Ness when they've seen this potential sighting of Nessie? Because there are other lochs in Scotland and they are very close to Loch Ness. You can just drive very short, like less than a mile, and then be at another loch. And for some people who don't know the area, they might have just driven that little bit further and gone, oh wow, I've seen something. And you might not have seen Nessie. You could have potentially gone off and you could have seen Lizzie and Loch Lochy. So
oh,
one
okay.
of Nessie's cousins as well.
Okay.
So plenty of lake, well, as you guys would call it, a lake, but lake monsters, loch monsters here in Scotland. But Nessie is the most famous one. So again, yeah, back to that photo. We don't even know if it's in Loch Ness. It's just not got any background context to it whatsoever. However, we can't deny that photograph its point in history because it's so iconic that if I showed that to anyone, they would 9 times out of 10 go, well, that's the Loch Ness Monster, or it's to do with the Loch Ness Monster. So
Right. Right. So what's like the earliest reportings of the Loch Ness monster that you guys have?
so the Loch Ness Monster, the earliest recorded sighting we have of Nessie is back in 565 AD by St. Columba. So he was over in Scotland doing his religious work, and he'd come over and gone to the River Ness, which is the river in Inverness, which is the city closest to Loch Ness, which does, of course, attach to Loch Ness. It's a long way, but basically it's still attached to Loch Ness. And he said there is this story that he had to fight off the sea serpent that had been causing huge trouble to locals in this river. And he wrote about it in his diary of his trip. And it's still there, like obviously the original copy I think is over in Sweden, but there's a first edition translation into English, and it's all detailing how he fought off the Loch Ness Monster. Obviously, prior to 1933, the Loch Ness Monster was actually just known as a sea serpent. It wasn't called the Loch Ness Monster, but the sea serpent that he fought off was the first sighting of a monster in and around Loch Ness.
Okay. And you say fought off. Was
Yeah,
there
yeah.
any kind
So
of
he said like he got the cross out and he got it away and it stopped causing any trouble. So that he was just probably confirming his religious beliefs as well at the same time. But yeah, he said that he banished it from the local area to stop causing them problems.
you know, we got to talk. I don't even know where we're talking on the show, or at least before we came on about there hasn't been any kind of like aggression or any kind of I guess
No.
malice intent. Uh,
No, in comparison to what you guys are up with, I suppose, with things in the woods, there's it's slightly a bit more debatable.
right.
No, Nessie's actually done nothing monstrous to earn that title. That was coined by the Inverness Courier in an article in 1933 that really kind of kicked off the Loch Ness Monster phenomenon back then. They said that there was something in the waters in Loch Ness, this and they coined the phrase Loch Ness Monster. And it really caught the attention of people that there was this monster in Loch Ness. And really all that had happened was someone had seen something come out of the water that they couldn't identify. They didn't know what it was. But obviously there'd been for however long, this mystery around this thing that lives in Loch Ness. So they were like, oh, I've seen the sea serpent. And the press called it Loch Ness Monster, and it went from there. But obviously a bit more affectionately, because Loch Ness Monster hasn't done anything monstrous, the nickname Nessie is much much kinder to
Right.
call the monster that, because Nessie's a nicer name. But the Daily Mail, who I mentioned earlier, did try and put their own spin on things, and at one point tried to call the Loch Ness monster Bobby because they thought it was a bit more friendly. But it just really, it made no sense. But then
Right.
Nessie luckily took over and has continued ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. I prefer that name a lot more. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it sounds more appealing and it just sounds cute, you know?
Yeah, it does just make it, I suppose, show the side that, at the end of the day, this creature living in Loch Ness isn't a monster. It is just a creature that we don't know much about that lives in Loch Ness, which is what the Loch Ness monster is. It's the mystery surrounding this creature that lives there. It's not attacked anyone. It's not eaten anyone. It has gone up beside boats and caused the boats to move slightly, and it has brushed along people who have been doing work around Urquhart Castle. As I mentioned earlier, there's Loch Ness Investigation Bureau, who were running from the 60s to the 70s. And one of their members was prepping for them to go out and do some work in the loch, and he needed to go in the water and do some work. And he said he felt this huge thing brushing up beside him, and he shot out of that water, and he was like, I am not going back in there. He's like, that thing was far too big to be in there. So that's about the extent of what Nessie's ever done. It's just existed in the body of water that they've always existed in.
Right. And it sounds like it's not trying to be aggressive or scare people. It's the people themselves that get scared, which I don't blame them, I guess,
Yeah, if you
but,
saw something unexplained and big coming out of the water, you would be like, what the heck is that? And
yeah,
some of the video footage that I've seen, and I'm obviously in a very fortunate position that we get a lot sent into us, but then, as you'll probably know, sometimes people get a bit funny about copyrights and stuff. So there's things that we've been sent, but people don't want to put out there, that we're like, what the heck is that? And it's
right,
made me go, I will hand on heart not swim in Loch Ness for multiple reasons, but that thing that I've seen, far too big, far too unexplained for me to ever want to swim in Loch
right.
Ness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah. So like you're in a really good position to to see some of these photos and videos that aren't going to be released because
Yeah.
being in the Bigfoot world, I've got some really good pictures that people sent me, and it's like they're like we don't want that shared, so you can't share it, right? But
And I was
no,
gonna
if you
say,
ask
and I
me,
think that's a big thing about the whole like cryptid world, is that when people see something, they're just so hesitant to put it out there, because the first thing you'll get is an ironclad shutdown from people going, it's not real, you faked it, it's a hoax, you're doing it for attention. They'll come down with all these reasons and excuses why this couldn't possibly be real. So many people are just already hesitant to put it out there just for
Mhm.
that first reason. But then it unfortunately just hinders everything, because you're like, well, it's such good evidence, but hey, people want to keep it in there, then it's like, okay. But then like people like you and me will be like, well, we can hand on heart confirm we've seen some stuff that just again builds this evidence that there is something unknown there that we can't instantly dismiss, and that we just know we have to continue researching.
Mhm.
So it's a bit difficult, but it's good as well.
Okay. And do you have like a general size of how big Nessie may be?
Yeah, so most sightings become between 15 and 20 foot long. So we get various different sightings that you'll see. So quite common, you just get the head popping out the water, something like that. Or you'll get kind of three humps, disturbance in the water. And that's always about 15 to 20 foot long, the disturbance in the water. And a lot of the time as well, when the head comes out, you can see the kind of distant disturbance.
Hmm.
Something that we don't commonly ever see is the head out and the humps behind. That's something that actually I think people have just depicted Nessie to be, but is actually like a super, super rare kind of sighting, and almost isn't a sighting the majority of the time. Then you would maybe think that's probably driftwood, which it can be quite common, or it could be a seal, or it could be an otter. Those kind of sightings. But yeah, it's mainly the heads, 15 to 20 foot long as well, with a few humps coming out of the water.
And what are some of the thoughts on what Nessie may be?
So some of the biggest theories of what the Loch Ness Monster could be. So Steve Feltham, Steve who lives up on the top of my wall there, and also lives at Loch Ness, his big theory is that it's a Wells catfish that was released in Victorian times because, you know, everyone just decided to take exotic animals back to the UK and then went, whoa, can't look after that, so we'll release it. So he reckons that could have been released into Loch Ness. That's his theory. There's the surgeon fish as well. A lot of people think it could be a surgeon. Eel, a massive eel. That is probably one very strong theory of what the Loch Ness Monster could be. Some people believe it is demons that have been released into Loch Ness by Aleister Crowley. Some people think there is a rip in time at the bottom of Loch Ness that allows Nessie to travel through from somewhere else, or UFOs. There's a few different theories, but I think the difficulty with some of those, I can instantly say is most likely not. So the catfish and the surgeons, the types of fish, there was an eDNA study done in Loch Ness in 2018, which ruled out that because they didn't actually find any catfish or surgeon DNA in Loch Ness. They found every eel under the sun in Loch Ness when they did that. However, they did also find that 20% of the DNA was unexplained. They didn't know what that DNA was. So 20% of it's completely unknown. But aside from that, that was quite a well-known study. But a study that's not so well known is local university is always checking out the biodiversity of Loch Ness, and they've discovered some really bizarre things in there, that there's actually like types of fish in Loch Ness that are not native to that side of Scotland. There's west coast fish in an east coast body of water. So they don't quite understand how that's happened. So it's always going. And as I think somebody's popped up saying it's a dinosaur, well, this is always a big controversy. Everyone thinks it's a plesiosaur, and it's really difficult because I don't think, and I'll say it's a controversial thing, but I personally don't believe there's a dinosaur that's lived in Loch Ness since that time. But that doesn't mean to say there's not been some kind of prehistoric animal that's just resided there, and as everything evolved and just lived there that we've not discovered yet, because of the size of Loch Ness, how big and deep it is, and how remote and how unexplored it is, there could be so much. I mean, there's 20% of the DNA in there is unknown. So is it a dinosaur from back then just cutting about in Loch Ness? Probably not, but it could be a distant relative of something. So yeah, rambled a bit.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you too, has there ever been any kind of digs or archaeological digs there that have happened? Have they found any kind of fossils?
Yes, there has. So there hasn't been plesiosaurs found, but there has been, oh goodness, I can't remember the exact type that was found, but basically it was actually called a pessie. There's this tiny little prehistoric kind of fish that actually, weirdly, despite its little size, it was like a baby one, the anatomy of that fish, had it grown to full size, would kind of match some of the sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. So there are some, and that was just found a few miles from Loch Ness. So it does again leave open that door that there could be something prehistoric living in there that we just don't know about. That could be a bottom dweller, and it's just down there doing its own thing, undisturbed by us. And then every so often popping its head out when it gets dragged up to the top.
Okay.
Yeah.
In one of your videos too, we talked about the aggression, or really the lack of aggression. Uh, what was up with the insurance for people
Oh,
swimming across
yeah.
there?
So
So what was that about?
quite often, so when you went on, there's a cruise company who do boat trips up and down Loch Ness called Jacobite Cruises. And they used to offer that when you went in the boat, you could just buy an insurance policy in case you were concerned that you were going to be attacked by the Loch Ness Monster. Now, they don't do that anymore commonly, but I'm pretty sure you could get insurance if you felt strongly enough about it. But there was a triathlon happening, and one section of it was to swim across Loch Ness. And to put at ease of the mind of the 100 swimmers who were going to be involved in this, they did get an insurance policy out for up to £1 million if they were bitten by the Loch Ness Monster. Now, there's never been a bite for the Loch Ness Monster, so I'm pretty sure the insurance company are like, yeah, you buy that policy. Yeah.
There you go. There
No,
you go.
no bites from the Loch Ness Monster, but yes, you can get insurance for against attacks from the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, and we talked about like a lot of the pictures and videos, right? What about any kind of audio? Is there any kind of vocalizations anyone has ever picked up or recorded?
So Alan McKenna, who I mentioned earlier, who does Loch Ness exploration, he has got a hydrophone that he uses in Loch Ness to try and hear some noises about Nessie. I think the difficulty in them is that you've got to be almost quite an expert to make sure that you're ruling out any disturbances to begin with. Now, this is where the experts have come into play in the local university, the University of the Highlands and Islands, have done very, very in-depth research projects at Loch Ness whereby they have put the hydrophones down and they've done it like scientific control levels, stuff that we as a fan club couldn't do, but totally appreciate the local university are actually doing. And they have found some very unexplained noises in there, as I say, and these are academic professors who have undertaken this research. So there have been studies done, but as I say, there's still different groups of people who go out every so often and then just listen to the noises. As part of the big search earlier this year, they did it, but I think unfortunately with the weather conditions, the boat they used, one of the other cryptozoologists, I think a lady called Katie Elizabeth, who's heavily involved with Champ over Lake Champlain, she was very critical of them doing it because I think she picked up on a few errors. But the local university has done it, academic professors, and they found some bizarre noises in according to them. And I would take that from a professor.
Yeah. So what about physical evidence? Like looking for Bigfoot. At least we can find prints. We
Yeah.
can find hair, right?
Yeah. Well,
What can you
Loch
does
Ness
Nessie
is a
leave behind?
very unforgiving body of water. So just the shape of it itself, it's a very deep gouge out of the land that formed from the glaciers melting, and it's literally it just goes straight down. You will go like 10-15 feet out. So there's the beach I've mentioned, Doors. You can go there, but then it's rapid straight down. And I mean, you're talking going down to 889 feet deep. There's not much. So, and also because it's a fresh body of water, there's no like waves and all that dragging stuff up. So anything carcass wise goes straight down to the bottom. And the thermodynamics, I'm not a great scientist, but the way the water is and the temperature, and basically it means that whatever's in there is just going to stay down to the bottom, go down there, and then it's going to get eaten up by all the bottom dwellers and it's going to go to the bottom. So we don't get things washing up on the shore. We don't get the carcasses. And even Steve Feltham, who's lived there for like 32 years searching for the Loch Ness Monster, he's even said himself, I think he's only seen like once or twice like a skeleton appearing. But interestingly, speaking about my dad, when he was doing the fan club at the beginning stages, they did go out to one of the lochs and they did find this really weird carcass. And I mean, this is back early days of the internet, and it went quite wild, this story, but then they didn't really truly know what this carcass was. They were like, whoa, well, let's not. Everyone was jumping on it going, they found dinosaur bones at Loch Ness. This is amazing. And he was like, they were literally out camping and they just found it. And I think they told a few people, but someone in the press had picked up on this and wanted to build this big story. And they were like, look, we don't actually know what this carcass is. It could even be something as simple as a deer, a sheep, but we're not actually fully sure. All of us can't really identify this. So they left out whilst they were camping, and then they, of course, wake up in the morning and it's gone. Weirdly. So, I mean, a bit weird, but as I say, just the design of Loch Ness, it's not very giving of any evidence. And it's difficult, even just like the DNA thing, when you don't know what you're looking for, you can't catalogue that DNA and say, oh yeah, there's the Loch Ness Monster's DNA. It's that unknown. Yeah, it would be amazing if we could get footstep. And they have tried to do the footsteps, but that was a hoax. It was proven to be a hippo's foot. the
Okay. That's
Loch
funny.
Ness, put it down, took pictures, but it was a hoax. So difficult. We are just purely relying on people seeing Nessie.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And Ernie says, it's a whale. How often do you get that?
We don't get whales in Loch Ness. So, I mean, if there was a whale in Loch Ness, and this is what I always reference it to, it would be like a show at SeaWorld. Because it's going to come up for air, and it's going to come up for air so regularly that all these boats going down up and down Loch Ness regularly, multiple times a day. We'd be seeing this so frequently, we would have hundreds upon hundreds more sightings than we do if it was a whale. And then we'd also be quite concerned because we'd be like, how the heck has a whale got into Loch Ness? And there'd be huge pandemonium about getting this whale back out to the North Sea to safety because it's managed to unfortunately get trapped in Loch Ness. It's gone down an extensive river and canal system to get there. But no, so it wouldn't be a whale because it would just be like a show at SeaWorld coming up, regularly timed, a lot more sightings of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. So what's the what is it like all the locals think? Is everybody on board with it, or people are like, it doesn't exist? Or
It's very divided because I think a lot of people shy away from it because of the whole tourism industry that it has understandably kind of clawed onto this and gone, oh, amazing, we've got a monster, let's sell everything. And a lot of people shy away going, I've not seen anything, so if I haven't seen anything, I can't say it's real or not. And then there's people who have seen stuff and probably won't come forward, and there's people who have seen stuff and are happy to speak about it. It's a mixed bag, really. But I think because the sightings of Nessie are quite rare, not many people have seen it, so a lot of people just err on the side of caution or are like, don't really know, haven't seen it myself though.
right, yeah, that's kind of the way it is here with the whole Bigfoot thing. A lot of people just don't care, right, one way or the other. And some people are like, if I see it, I'll believe it.
Yeah. And
But
then
of course, here in the States, we commercialize the hell out of it. So
yeah, Bigfoot's such a big thing as well. But yeah, I suppose the other thing as well is people in the moment of seeing something, I think they're just so floored by it as well that they probably don't believe they've even seen it themselves. They think, oh no, I've just seen something. I've seen a log popping its head out of the water, or I've probably just seen a play on the brush in the woods, something like that. They just don't truly want
shadows or something.
yeah.
Right? Yeah. Well, what about the government? What is the government? Do they have a stance on it one way or the other?
So this is where the Loch Ness Investigation Bureau came in the 60s because there had been so much sightings about the Loch Ness Monster and so much kicked up in the media about this. They decided they were going to invest in a proper investigation. So the government backed the Loch Ness Investigation Bureau, and they were the ones to kind of like ask for this to be initiated. And so the government had stance in it, and they also did put in environmental protection laws to protect Nessie. So Nessie does come under that protection still. So that's why people can't just rock up to Loch Ness with the biggest net and say, I'm going to capture the Loch Ness Monster, because it's actually illegal, because you would just damage the ecosystem of many different creatures living in there, not just Nessie. So it's against the law. As one Swedish man found out in the early 2000s, you can't just rock up to Loch Ness with a harpoon, because you'll not just be met by the local police, but you'd be met by a witch as well, which did happen.
Yeah.
And that brings in
So yeah, Big Dog here. This is Big Dog.
Ah.
Yes. What about underground caves for Nessie to hide?
So
to go to see?
that is what our most recent investigation we did as a fan club back in August. So being at Loch Ness, you can just look at the very big 27-mile long loch and try and find Nessie, but that's exceptionally difficult. So one of the biggest series, of course, has been the caves, as we've just mentioned there. So what we want to do is find out more about these caves. Now, obviously, a lot of people say these are underground caves linking it to the sea. But locals had said, no, there are just caves at Loch Ness. There's caves that you can access. So we were like, well, we absolutely want to go to the caves. But problem being, it's very remote. Despite it being in the middle of Scotland with a road at one side and a road at the other side as well, actually getting to explore the shoreline of the whole of Loch Ness is quite remote and hasn't really been done that often, just trying to access it. So we'd been told there's caves, there's 100% caves there. This local, he confirmed it and said, I used to play in them as a child, and I can tell you, if you go to this area, you'll find them. So we took it as a challenge. We're like, fantastic. We'll go as a group of us. We were lucky one of the group members is like military experience because we needed that. Um, as we'd taken all our very fancy camera equipment down to a big body of water and then realized, oh, this is going to be a bit wetter than we expected. So we went there, and I mean, just even to get to the area down by the shoreline, he said, took like a good hour of clambering down steep woodline. Oh goodness, that was an adventure to begin with. And then we got there and we're like, right, caves, let's look around. Now we had to find the caves. And we're really lucky that our like one group member who's military trained, he was absolutely not phased by any of this. He was like, "We'll go deeper. We will find these caves. Just jump over those rocks. Don't you worry." And I'm like, going like, I'm not that outdoorsy. Should I clamber over all this and all this like really muddy and lovely area, completely undisturbed by people. Obviously, then we come and trample along, and then we're going a bit further in, and as I said, we really didn't go that far in from Loch Ness. It was all attached to it, but it was just trying to get around this like rock system. And I mean, at one point I was like, it's been like 2 hours now, or are these caves even here? What, maybe as a child he thought this was much bigger than what it was. I mean,
Right.
we can all perceive things different when we're younger. And then our like the group member went, no, just look up there. That's the first one. And then we were like, there's a cave. Like, there's genuinely a cave here. And so many people had dismissed the theory of there ever being any caves at Loch Ness, saying there's the wrong type of stone there, couldn't possibly be true. They're like, just absolutely not a cave. And then we were looking at the first cave going, there's one. So we're like, right, we've got to push on. We have to push on now. I was like, get over this mud and water fear, and like the cameras, we can just put them over there. We'll get them back. We're going to these caves. So we got around, and then we found a cave system. Obviously, water. It was slightly like submerged in the water. It was kind of flooded at the time, but like it was so frustrating because the one cave that we really wanted to go in that looked the most interesting was just the other side. And even like our team member, the most outgoing, trained one of us, he couldn't get over to it. He was like, no, we would need to come back with more equipment. We need to plan it more to come around from the other side maybe and try and get it there. But definitely, we got pictures. We were like, we found the caves at Loch Ness that everyone said isn't real. And then this, again, just kind of reconfirmed some of the theories that the Loch Ness Monster maybe doesn't necessarily live in Loch Ness, but it lives slightly in these cave systems, or it goes out to these like more calm, remote bits of Loch Ness, which I can talk about a bit more interestingly because we got some video footage in from a guy who loves to explore the shoreline of Loch Ness from his kayak, and he found this kind of bit that went in and all these like creatures crawling up the walls, and he was filming it, and he's like these might be a type of eel. He's like, but what are these things literally climbing up a waterfall? He was like, this is amazing, and he wanted to put it out there to the world, but no one wanted to listen to him. And I was just like, you need to tell me where that location is because I want to go there, get a kayak and see what's going on in that bit. But yeah, back to our caves. We did all that. We put it out there, but still the one thing that we've held back from people is the location of the caves because one, we felt it was quite dangerous to access. Two, it really wasn't an area that's been disturbed by people. And I think you have to respect the landscape and not send hundreds of people in that bit now to go search it. And three, we didn't really want people to then do that and probably have to get mountain rescue to come get them out if they hurt themselves. So, but it's now part of our plans for 2024 is to go back to these caves at the right time of year. Maybe it's a bit drier when the water's levels have calmed down after the winter, and to explore that cave that we just couldn't get into and see what's in there. And then look again at that other area the guy said with these little creatures crawling up the walls. Like we just want to see what's going on at Loch Ness that's not really been researched into that much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That sounds exciting. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with.
It's going to be really interesting. I think definitely going to have to prepare the footwear a bit better this time, and and a bit more waterproof. But yeah, no, we're really excited to see what we can find in there. And then at that point, I think there's a few other groups of people who do the research around Loch Ness, and when we feel a bit more confident about finding a safer way into it, I would definitely share with some people maybe where to find these. But for right now, we're like, let's not harm people or potentially harm Nessie, who might be living there as well.
Right. So let's say you get the evidence that proves once and for all Nessie's real, Nessie's a real thing. Are you going to share that?
Oh,
Have you ever struggled with that yourself?
I mean, there's things that we've plans we've put together about trying to see if we could lure Nessie to one location with a baiting exercise over maybe a period of a week, to really see if we could. But then it's a difficult one because we could say that something's definitively the Loch Ness Monster and probably put it out there to the world, but then what else is in there? Like, is there more than one Loch Ness Monster? Like, I don't know, it's a huge mystery. I would like to share with people any research we find, but I wouldn't ever want to just disband and kill the myth. I think we'd have to have some rock solid evidence. It'd be great to go, we found the Loch Ness Monster and this is what it is, and then get us a confirmed animal out there in the world and bust this way that it's not a cryptid anymore, that Loch Ness Monster is real. But it would also be sad to ruin the mystery of it all as well. But no, we'll always further the research and definitely share that. So if it was needed, then yeah, absolutely, we'd want to share that with the world. But just mainly to protect Nessie more than anything else. Save her from
Right.
any more damage or harm or anything like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Um, so do you think there's a breeding population?
Absolutely. So back in, I mean, there's been sightings of multiple things together going through Loch Ness. Like I did a video on it recently. Back in 2016, there was 2 things seen swimming together, and another person saw the same thing on that day from a different location at a different time. So again, that plays into the theory because I don't think we could have one thing that just lives forever living in Loch Ness. And it's probably the same with Bigfoot. You're not just going to have one Bigfoot that's going darting across America everywhere.
Right.
There's
Right.
multiples going on, and it could be with you guys as well that there might not just be like one species of it. There could be subspecies, and maybe that's the same in Loch Ness. But I think there has to definitely be a breeding population for this to have gone on since 565 AD to now. It's very unlikely that there's one animal doing this the whole time. There could just be
Right.
multiple different types of ones as well. So yeah, definitely has to be a breeding population.
Yeah, so Big Dog has a question again, and I'm sure he's laughing about it because we get this in the Bigfoot world. You get tons of red circle pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes get the squares as well, red square, but yes, no. We do get that. People like to draw it now as well nowadays because you can draw it on your own phone, so it's not necessarily
Right.
quite circle. But yes, we do get regular submissions of photographs of potential unexplained things in Loch Ness, and that's the majority of the time what we'll say is it's something unexplained in Loch Ness because it's very difficult to 100% put your finger on what something is. And even then, we've sometimes had something that we thought, what is this? There was submissions of like Google Map images of the Loch Ness Monster and ones from Apple Maps. And at the time, early when you're looking at this and it's been out there to the world for everyone to kind of think what they think this could be, you have to say it's something unexplained because you don't definitively know if it's a Loch Ness Monster. But then what it's done with time, sometimes it's come out of the woodwork, oh no, actually here's the justification for what's happened in this photograph, and you're like, oh, okay, so it's probably not. Or then we get more confirmation that it's 100% something that could be Nessie.
Right. What's one of your most compelling sightings that you know of, or that a witness has come and told you?
So there was a man called Richard White who back in the 90s submitted, I'm pretty sure it was late 90s, early 2000s, he had a series of 10 photographs of something at Loch Ness, and they are annoyingly back in those times. It's literally he got the photos, he got them printed, and these are the photos he had. But like by far some of the most compelling photographs, the series of something coming in and out of Loch Ness that he saw, probably some of the best for a while. And it ties in very well with the strongest, like most confirmed sightings that we're like, that's got to be the Loch Ness Monster. That's where his ones sit. So yeah, Richard White's photographs are definitely up there.
And has anyone ever had like a prolonged sighting, not just something came out of the water and got back down? Has anyone like had something for several minutes or?
Yeah. So the majority of people do see something over a few minutes, and they just a lot of the time sit and watch it and go, what is that there right now? Before they kind of the cogs start turning and they start thinking, this could be the Loch Ness Monster. It's a few minutes have gone by, and by that point, they've maybe just snapped one photograph and gone, don't know what that is, and I'll look into it later, and then it's gone. Getting a video of the Loch Ness Monster is probably one of the most rare and gold dust things out there, because, as I say, I think so many people just are staring at it for so long, going, nah, I'm definitely seeing something. This can't be real, before it then just disappears off. Because it travels at quite a speed as well. That's the other thing people don't realize. It's fairly traveling down the loch as they're watching it, and by the time they're really starting to catch on to what they're seeing, it's quite far in the distance at that point, or it's just gone back down again.
Right. Yeah, and that happens, of course, here in America with the Bigfoot. Everyone has a phone on them nowadays, and they'll tell you that taking a picture was the last thing I thought about.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
many people get really angry on TikTok and online, saying like, why is it taking on the equivalent of a potato, and why is nobody taking a video of this? And you're like, well, if you were face to face with something that you had absolutely no idea was, and you thought, oh, this is the area that this cryptid lives in, is this like what I'm seeing? You're the last thing a lot of people think are doing is like whipping their phone out and starting to record it. People who are interested in cryptids, that's the first thing they're thinking of. Like, I'm getting this evidence because I need to see this again. But yeah, no, a lot of people just don't understand that recording these things isn't the first thing that people think of. It doesn't come natural to people to think, oh, we better start recording it.
Yeah. And Big Dog has another one here. Any UFO or UFO sighting? Any UFO or orb sightings in that area?
Not. I don't know, because not many people again would come forward with that to us. So there was a man called Frank Searle who lived at Loch Ness. He was like Steve Felton, but he did it way back again, way before Steve Felton, back in like the 80s. And he unfortunately started to go down the hoax route. And I think that's where mentioning UFOs and the Loch Ness Monster instant, like, people don't even want to like open that conversation up, because they're like, oh, that's been hoaxed before. Because he was literally putting driftwood in the water and throwing a dustpan lid over it and taking a picture and going, Nessie and a UFO together. So people really discuss UFO sightings around there. But I know there's a lot of paranormal groups up in the Highlands and around Inverness who they're a lot more into that. But I mean, I would love to approach them about Loch Ness Monster, but I think if we met together, they would probably be like, "You're talking rubbish," and I'd be like, "Well, no, we're not."
No, yeah, and that happens too. So, like, if I talk to people in the paranormal field or the UFO field, and we talk about Bigfoot, one group will think Bigfoot is a paranormal entity. The other group will tell you that Bigfoot is from outer space. You'll have the supernatural group that tells you Bigfoot turns into an orb, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, look, Bigfoot is one thing. It's not five different things.
Yeah, it's really difficult. Yeah, when these worlds are kind of like crossing paths, because I think, yeah, we probably, as like people who are interested in the cryptid, sit in the middle and go, like, you have to respect this creature for what it is. And we don't really know enough about it to put it in one of these camps to begin with. So we've got to let it be its own thing right now before we start pigeonholing it down the route of a UFO or a paranormal ghost. It's like, just let us learn a little bit more about it first.
Yeah, that's exactly what I tell everybody. Let's prove Bigfoot exists,
Yeah.
and then we'll determine whether or not he's jumping through the portal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you have coming up for yourself? You have any trips planned for Loch Ness? Are you going up there anytime soon?
As I say, so it's a lot of it's like weather dependent, because you can delightfully sit at Loch Ness and stare at it forever, as Steve's done for 32 years now. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to further our research anymore. That's why we're, like, as I say, we're looking into the caves a bit more. We're wanting to continue to work with a local university to get that research, to understand the ecosystem in Loch Ness and the biodiversity that lives there, just to look into that 20% of unknown DNA. And we're really fortunate that we have got those professors that we can link with and say, look, we've had this come in that's like this sighting that everyone's determines the Loch Ness Monster. What do you as an academic believe this could be? And they're extremely in depth in terms of they will fairly discredit something, but equally will credit something when they don't know what it is. And they say, nope, absolutely, it's something that lives in the body of water. I can't say what it is. It's most likely something unexplained. Could be under the Loch Ness Monster category. So just to continue to work with local university, research that landscape around Loch Ness, hopefully meet up with like Loch Ness Exploration and do some work with them. But as I say, we're just keeping our eyes out, putting it out there to the world about Loch Ness Monster, continuing to keep our register of all our sightings, and just continuing to further the knowledge of the Loch Ness Monster for people who go there, so that they know that we exist, so that they can tell us if they see something, so that we can just continue to work together.
Yeah. And talk about a little bit about the fan club. What exactly is the fan club, and how can people join, and
Yeah,
how can they
so
help out?
our fan club, we run it on Patreon. So we on the fan club, you will get your membership. You get a lovely like certificate saying that you are a member of the official Loch Ness Monster fan club. Got a few bits of information about Loch Ness and Nessie in general. But then you get access to our Patreon, whereby we put all the first kind of information about sightings. We put potential sightings. Like this is the port of call for anyone who wants like the behind the scenes stuff. Because there's a lot that we can put out there on the world and social media, and I'm happy to talk about. But there's stuff that like is for the people who are truly interested and who truly want to learn that a little bit more, and to help us to decipher some of these sightings and learn about it before the rest of the world. Like earlier this year, there was the photographs from 2018 from Mrs. Kelly that were like really unexplained, and we'd heard obviously through the network of people that there was meant to be game-changing photographs, and that's something that I put out there to the fan club first, going, heads up guys, we're due to get in this sighting that's meant to be game-changing. We've not been privileged enough to see it because they've gone to the press first, which happens a lot of the time, but we just like to let them know that there's something coming out, what do they think, and then we'll do an in-depth breakdown of these sightings, and we'll discuss it together and try and work out what we think this could be. Does it fit in any of the categories we know? So that's more kind of like the fan club work and everything. And obviously we've got a lot of Nessie I don't know way to describe it, so I might go like memorabilia, but like Nessie stuff, like collector's stuff that's like one of a kind Nessie items that we like to share with people. And we've actually shared with them like there is an official register, there's a physical register of every single sighting that we don't put out there to the world, but for them we'll let them see it, and we'll let them see some of our collection. Like we've got the first edition translation of that first ever Nessie sighting. We've got one, and we've got lots of rare Nessie books that we just like to let people know, oh, so this is what it physically looks like, because they're so few and far between to find them, but like this is it. And there's no kind of Nessie museum that does this, so we've kind of got like a little online one going, like if you want to learn a bit more and see it, here it is. So that's a fan club, so you can join us on Patreon. And if you don't want to pay for that, because not everyone wants to, of course you can find us on social media, always on TikTok talking about Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, 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 guys. I highly recommend you go check her out. Check out her page. She's got some great information, and she's very entertaining too. So that's one of the things that I liked about you. Just you're very into it, and I like that.
Yeah,
So
no, that's the thing. I
yeah,
think what I noticed as well is that obviously I'm very lucky to come from like a family of people who are Loch Ness Monster. Again, I wouldn't say we're believers, because to us, the Loch Ness Monster is real. There's like there's no debate there. There's something unknown that lives in Loch Ness, and I'm really lucky to be immersed in this my whole life. But then it's just realizing that everything in the world is on social media now. I mean, we're on social media right now doing this, and
right.
when it comes to cryptids, I feel like there was this kind of lull for a bit, that no one's getting it out there about them. Like, I mean, there's a lot of people on TikTok who will just reel off stories, but are there people who are truly dedicated in this one cryptid and want to further the research? It's hard to get people who are confident enough to sit on a camera and openly go to the world, Nessie is real, and tell people. And I was like, yeah, I'm happy. Like, I enjoy doing that. I like getting it out there. So, and I try and do it in the most like friendly manner possible, because as I say, like, yeah, you want someone who's approachable to discuss
Yeah,
it with. Last thing you
yeah,
want someone
exactly.
scary in a world that can already be a bit intimidating because it's unknown.
Right. Yeah. The one thing I wanted to mention too is a lot of the pictures that I see of Loch Ness. It's got some beautiful views. Do you ever just go there and just sit down and watch
Oh,
the
it's
sunset or
gorgeous.
the
It's a
sunrise?
it's a stunning
Yeah.
place, and it is. I mean, it's one of these things. Like everyone's always said, would you ever move right next to Loch Ness and live there? And I'm like, absolutely not, because I would do nothing other than stare out the window and just stare at it and go, "This is amazing," and I could even see
It's
Nessie
beautiful.
today. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's stunning out there, and very envious. Like my brother works on the shore of Loch Ness every single day.
Oh
That's what
wow.
his job is, and I'm like, let's role reverse here. I should be there. But no,
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, but you probably won't get any work done, right? You'd be just
Well,
staring off.
exactly. Yeah, I'd be the worst
Yeah.
employee in the world. I'd just be like, oh, well, I'm just searching. So no, yeah,
Yeah.
it's stunning, and Scotland is it's just got such an amazing landscape to it, and really fortunate to live in Scotland and see such an amazing place. But yeah, it's stunning there. Yeah, 100%.
And one final question for you. What do you think about Bigfoot?
Now, so, and you also asked me when we had our pre-chats to ask my dad about this. Obviously, he's the OG president of the official Loch Ness Monster fan club, keeper of the register of sightings, and he did a lot of like investigation stuff for BBC Radio Scotland back in the 90s as well. So I asked him, I was like, "Hey, what's your thoughts on Bigfoot?" And I wrote it down to get word for word
Okay.
what he was saying. So he is almost certain that there, yeah, he's like, it's, you can't deny it. He's 100% like, you cannot deny all these sightings and this evidence that people have brought forward about this unexplained creature living in North America, the Bigfoot, as we know. He says, and he's also strongly in the belief because Yeti was proven to be real. They found the DNA, he was saying. So he was saying that the Yeti's real. Like they found DNA to prove that it's like a distant relative of a polar bear. So he's like, so there is evidence out there to suggest these things are real. There's sightings, there's people finding like the fur, you're finding these footprints. It's all sat there. He says, but the biggest problem he finds is that it's getting out there to people and getting past that barrier of the hoaxes because it's such a
Right.
well-known thing. I think the one thing that poor Bigfoot gets probably targeted the most because it's probably the most well-known cryptid out there is the hoaxes, and it's a big target for that, which then subtracts away from the investigations. But yeah, 100%, he's like, it's real. It'll be out there and it'll be real. It's just trying to
Yeah.
get over that hurdle of people faking it, which is really
Right.
difficult.
Right.
But for me as well, 100% believer in Bigfoot. As I say, I've been doing a little bit more research. I'm very Nessie heavy. It consumes a lot of my time. And people are like, oh, what about other cryptids? And I'm like, have you looked into one cryptid? Because there's a lot to then
Right.
look into
Right.
more. But no, I find it really interesting, again, looking at these documentaries where people are finding like the physical fur and the videos of these things coming up to their trailers and knocking on the door, and they're getting video footage of this and they're going, there is something there, and they're getting like 30 sightings in one river, like stretch of river, going, there's something there. And then you're like, how can people then go, it's not real? You're like, how that blows my mind. I mean, we've had 7 sightings of Loch Ness Monster this year, and I mean, some of them haven't even had a photograph. And I'm like, it's 100% real, but then to like have so much evidence on your guys' side, like physical evidence as well, and then for people to still go, couldn't possibly be real.
That's not real.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, you know what? You're right. Because like on my days off, if I gotta go somewhere, because as much as I love the paranormal stuff, as much as I love the UFO stuff, when I get a day off, I'm out in the woods looking for Bigfoot. So yeah.
Yeah,
But if I ever find myself in Scotland, I'm gonna look you up and we'll go find it together. And if you
absolutely.
ever here, I'll take you to go find a Bigfoot.
I will hold you to that. You're gonna find me one day.
All right.
I'm in Texas. We're gonna find it today. Just don't
All
let
right.
get eaten though. That's the only thing. Don't know if the
Okay.
travel insurance will cover that.
Okay. Well, as long as you can run faster than me, we got no issues. So.
Gosh, I'll get training.
There you go. Well, cool beans, man. It was really cool talking to you. Do you have anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to promote? Or
No, I was saying, like, I think for anyone who's interested in cryptids, like, be interested, do your research, go out there and look. There's nothing holding you back. You don't have to be a professional to do this. You've just got to have an interest, and you've just got to want to learn that little bit more, find that fact, put things together, be a detective about it, and just be brave enough to do it either in person, as you said, or you can do it on your own behind a computer. You can do it in different places. You don't physically have to go out there, but just work on it and be confident to do it, because there's a world full of people like you and me who are out there doing this, that are wanting to meet other people and continue to grow this community, that are interested in furthering research about cryptids. So don't ever be scared. Be bold, be brave, and say it's real. Don't say you believe, because I don't think there's anything to doubt when it comes to these cryptids.
Right. Yeah. You're right about meeting great people. Some of my best friends I've met in the cryptid world. So
Yeah, this is a great world, and to say, yeah, just we just need more people who are happy to talk about it and further the research in these creatures and unravel these mysteries around them.
exactly. Well said. Well said. Well, cool, Miss Page. Hold on real quick. We're about to end the show. And everybody else, man, thanks a lot for participating. I really appreciate it. You guys had some great questions and comments as always. So I will see you guys on Monday. I can't remember my guest, but I'll have a show Monday. And once again, thanks a lot, Paige. I really do appreciate it.
No, it's been great chatting to you guys.
Okay.